This has been my mantra, and I wish I had started saying it to myself earlier, is that I am who I am and I don't need to apologize for that. You're you, you're beautiful, you're confident, you're amazing, and you don't need to apologize for any of it.
Welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast. It's your girl, Kate Bryan. The One Girl Revolution podcast highlights the stories of everyday women who are changing the world through their lives. Every week, I talk to inspiring women and girls who are doing something incredible to make a difference in the world. Please subscribe to the One Girl Revolution podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at One Girl Revo. That's the number one girl, R-E-V-O. We're on YouTube at One Girl Revolution, and you can find all of our social media links, all our podcast episodes, stories, videos, everything else under the sun at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number one girlrevolution.com. Before we get into today's episode, I want to talk about the resilience of women specifically. In this episode, we talk about all the things that women have come through, all the things that women are currently going through, everything they've risen above, and everything they are rising above. You just think about COVID, and there are so many things that women carried on their backs throughout this pandemic, including their lives, their careers, their health and well-being, the health and well-being of those around them, their children, their children's education, their families, all of the things. So I just want to give a little shout out before we get started to women around the world. You are amazing. You're powerful. You're beautiful. You're resilient. You're absolutely incredible. We need you to shine. So own your beauty, own your power, and let's get to work. The world needs you. On today's episode, I am so thrilled to welcome my dear friend, a friend I literally made through a cold call a couple of years ago for One Girl. I had been following Rebel Nell for a while and loved the jewelry that they made out of graffiti art. You'll hear so much more about Rebel Nell in this episode. And because of the social enterprise element of their business, I reached out to the co-founder of Rebel Nell, Amy Peterson, and asked her to film a video for One Girl. Thankfully, she obliged, and this was long before the days of The Girl Inside and Behold and all the beautiful videos that we've been able to make more recently, but Amy saw the vision from the very beginning, and I am so grateful for her openness and her support of One Girl Revolution and for her being a One Girl Revolution and being a part of this incredible community. When The Girl Inside came out a couple of months ago, Amy's gathering spot in Detroit, the Congregation, which you'll hear about in this episode, hosted a watch party, which was absolutely amazing. Amy is a woman of many talents, many organizations, many businesses. She jokes about how she's a serial entrepreneur, or somebody called her that once in this episode, but she runs Rebel Nell, the Congregation. She also runs Teach, Empower, Achieve, which you'll hear so much about in this episode, and so much more. She moved to Detroit to work for the Detroit Tigers, and after about 11 years with the Tigers, she left that job to empower women around Detroit, and her work continues to evolve and grow nationwide. She's absolutely incredible. She's a force to be reckoned with, and I'm so excited to welcome the one and only Amy Peterson to the One Girl Revolution podcast. Finally, it's been a couple of years in the making, to share her incredible story, her wisdom, and more about all the incredible work that she does. So without further ado, here's my amazing friend, Amy. Amy, welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be back.
I'm so excited to have you on to tell your story, to talk about the incredible work that you do with Rebel Nell, how Rebel Nell started, and then now the Congregation. So we're in the basement of the Congregation, which is my favorite coffee shop. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here. Everybody who knows me knows and loves the Congregation now. You're such an incredible woman, and you're doing so many incredible things. So I want to talk about all of that. But before we get into your own life story and your own journey, who's a One Girl Revolution to you? Who is a woman that has inspired you in your own life? And maybe it's somebody now, or maybe it's somebody throughout your whole life that's been there for you.
You know, and she just passed a couple weeks ago. My grandma sacrificed a lot for me and has always been the best champion without wanting any thanks in return, and loved unconditionally. She's who I want to be when I grow up, and traveled the world, and I just, that she meant a lot to me. And, it's one of those moments you hear often, but call someone today and tell them that you love them, because you just never know.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss, but
no, I'm grateful that I had her. Like, she was
Yeah.
amazing, and I have no regrets. Like, so that's my grandma.
And her legacy lives on through you in so many different ways. I don't even know her, but I'm sure that it does. So, because you're doing such incredible work. So, with that being said, about your grandmother, can you tell just like a little bit about your own life and where you grew up, and a little bit about who you are and where you're from?
Sure. I grew up in a small town outside Buffalo, New York, called Jamestown, New York. And I, went to high school there, and that is my family still lives in the area. But at a really young age, I wanted to work in baseball. I love baseball, and that was where my dream, it really started resonating when I was about 14, 15 years old. I would go to our little minor league team games with my dad and my grandfather, and I would learn to score the game, and I enjoyed watching baseball, and so I was like, well, I want to work in baseball. And I really set out to do that pretty early on, and I went to college, then law school, then business school, primarily to have that like well-rounded brain. I wanted to be on the player acquisition side, which I jokingly but somewhat seriously call it the no girls allowed side of baseball, and went, really that was what I wanted to do. And during college and law school, I applied to work for free for any baseball team would take me. I have loads of rejection letters in a box at my parents' house. And for every rejection letter I would get, I would send out 3 more. I have the story that this guy I really thought was going to be an incredible mentor for me, and my law school professor had connected us. He owned a bunch of minor league teams. I was like, oh, this is it. This is going to be my in. And I told him I wanted to be the first female general manager of a Major League Baseball team. And I'll never forget, he literally laughed, and then said, honey, your best bet is to marry a player. And I was so gobsmacked, but I had to keep it together. And I said, I just respectfully disagree. And I turned, walked out. I remember going to my apartment and crying my butt off for a while. And then I got back on sending out more and more resumes. But fortunately, I was able to get the opportunity to move to Detroit to pursue that dream of working in sports. I came as an intern for the Detroit Tigers in 2007, and then worked my way up to being associate counsel for them. I was there for 11 years. And then just this tug of wanting to empower women. Being a woman in the industry has its challenges. And that ultimately led to starting Rebel Nell.
I love that story, and I actually forgot some of those pieces of it because I know when we first met, you told me that story, and I know numerous of my friends, they love baseball, and they always are like, yeah, people always say like, oh, it's a guy's sport, but I think so many women love baseball, and I think everybody's craving to go back to like baseball game. I know I am like dying to go back to baseball games and stuff, but I think that it's so cool that you worked in baseball for a while.
Yeah, it was amazing to say I achieved a dream, and I'm grateful for my Tigers family. They were wonderful to me and still some of my closest friends. And there's something very special about baseball in Detroit too. Opening day is a holiday. I mean, it's bigger than most holidays here. So yeah. I too am excited to go to a game.
Yeah. And for all the women that are listening too, if you have a dream, chase it, and don't think that you didn't have to marry a baseball player
turns out I didn't have to marry a baseball player. And I think I certainly have learned over time, my personality is that it hurts for sure. Negativity hurts, but you use that to fuel your fire. Like you channel that. It's so easy to use that to defeat you. And that's where your brain goes. And you have those moments of defeat. And that's okay. Like live in that moment, but then make it energize you.
Mm-hmm. So for people that are listening, I want to talk about Rebel Nell and how it came to be. But for people that are listening that might not be familiar with Rebel Nell, what is Rebel Nell?
Rebel Nell is a social enterprise. We are based in Detroit. The reason we exist is to provide employment, equitable opportunity, and wraparound support for women with barriers to employment. We hire from local shelters, and our focus is on women who have been faced with homelessness, formerly incarcerated, refugees, LGBTQ+. We employ them, teach them how to make jewelry. It's all one of a kind, and it's made from repurposed material, such as fallen graffiti or other crazy material from iconic buildings. And then while they're with us for about 2 years, we really tackle the barriers that have been prohibitive in the past and then transition them into the traditional workforce. So to date, we've hired 30 women out of the shelter and graduated 21.
Wow, it's incredible. And it just, even during the pandemic, you guys were doing so much incredible work. And I'm sure that there were so many difficulties with that. And I want to talk about that. But how did the idea for Rebel Nell spark? Because I know you have a great story for how that idea sparked.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm doing something now, and I'm sure you often have these moments too, where I'm doing something now that was never on my radar. Never thought this is what I'd be doing with my life. I had no interest in being an entrepreneur. I thought once I got into baseball, I would never leave. And I was in Detroit, living right next door to a well-known shelter, and would have conversations with the residents. They were incredible women. I learned their stories of what and ultimately ended up them ending up in the shelter. And this was also going along where I had a bit of a rough patch with my job, especially being a woman and trying to break through certain barriers. It wasn't the most embracing of those desires that I had, and I think that's what ultimately happened, is I was able to channel that frustration into starting Rebel Nell. And honestly, I had no idea what a social enterprise was. I actually didn't know that term until maybe 2 or 3 years after we'd started the company. I just had this idea where, okay, why can't we start a company that would literally teach a woman to fish, where we would not only provide employment, but while they're employed with us, we could help them get back on their feet. And that's just, this idea was born. I remember talking to some incredible people at the shelter, including Delphia Simmons, who's still an amazing woman and mentor for me today. And she's like, something like this would be incredible. Like, give it a shot. So we did. It was just going to be a passion project. Never anticipated more than that. And here I am doing it full time now. Took the leap in 2018, and I haven't looked back yet.
It's incredible.
Even with the pandemic, I haven't looked back one day.
And it's still going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that are listening, and they've gotten to see different stories that we've dealt with one girl. We did a documentary called The Girl Inside, which we showed here at the congregation when it first came out, and talking about incarceration and women, men too, but women specifically coming out of jail and prison. But even like dealing with the girl inside and sharing some of these stories, people didn't realize when that documentary came out how difficult it is, and how women, get out of jail and prison and they feel like they have no options, so they end up right back there. And I think that's the same with people experiencing homelessness. They just feel, and we've all probably had those moments in our lives where you feel like you're just on this path and you don't know how to get out. We're just on like a conveyor belt at a grocery store, and it's like, I don't know how to get out. And sometimes you just need somebody to give you an opportunity. And really that's what you've created with Rebel Nell.
Yeah. And I think you're spot on. And I think that was also a wake-up moment for me, and also a moment where it made me recognize the insane amount of privilege I've had growing up, where I had a support system. If I misstepped as a teenager, or, I don't know, got a parking ticket, I didn't like to, but I had somebody who I was like, oh, I'm in financial trouble, could you help me with this? If you don't have that, it's amazing how quickly you can fall. And I think that's been such an eye-opener for me, but also what I've found that we've really created at Rebel Nell is the intangibles, right? You're a family. Like, we are a family. When someone comes into Rebel Nell, we take it very seriously. Like, coming into Rebel Nell, you have to fit with our culture, because everybody's there to uplift each other. And we, not only are you with us like during that period of time, but then, our alumni we have tremendous relationships with them. And one of our very first graduate is now serving on the board of a nonprofit that we started, and just building out that alumni group so that they're there for the next generation of Rebel Nell employees is really, really important. So yeah, that's, I think, at the core of what we do, is just provide a lot of love. Like, we actually say, I love you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what I love about it.
Yeah. And I think the power that women have, I think a lot of times we don't even recognize the power, and just as humans, the power that we have to change the world and how resilient we are, that we sometimes don't even realize our own power. And I'm sure that you're seeing that every single day with these women that you're working with and how they're coming through hell and back. You know, that's what I love about the city of Detroit is I feel like Detroit's been through hell and back. And there's the two phrases on Detroit's flag talking about we hope for better things and it will rise from the ashes. But I always think about women because women have been through so many difficult things and they still can just rise above it all. And you have to put in the work. You have to work hard. But there is so much. Yeah, the world is your oyster. You can do anything.
Yeah. And you know, you also talk about resiliency, especially, you know, seeing just the impact of the pandemic too, particularly on women. And, you know, it's astonishing how, yes, it certainly impacted everybody, but women the most. And we've seen it so deeply impact the women that we serve, being, you know, heads of household, single moms. With this job, the jobs are being shut down. It's been so challenging how much of this they've had to face. And so it's just our job to uplift and get them through this, not only financially, but also emotionally. Like there's a lot. So
is there a story or two of women that have gone through Rebel Nell that maybe touched your heart in a special way that just sort of embody the work that you do and why you do what you do?
Oh, there's been a lot. I'm fortunate to have access to so many. I think of Karen often. She's my constant, she's my North Star. She's my reason for doing it. She's like, you know, it's not the easiest business to run, and it's certainly challenging, and not everybody makes it the way that you want them to make it through Rebel Nell. But then you have the Karens of the world who really embraced what Rebel Nell had to offer. She was an incredible employee, took all the classes, had so many struggles that she came to us and said, I need help with this. And it's like, that's what we're here for. That's what we're meant to do. And we would then work with her to fix each obstacle. And then we helped her get a job that she had really wanted. And then she graduated. And now she's, like I said, she's on the board of T.E.A, Teach, Empower, Achieve. And she's just this constant reminder of like, I wouldn't be here had it not been for Rebel Nell. And I think it's not necessarily you're looking for that, but it's nice to hear every once in a while. But she's everything. We have so many like Karen that have gone through this way. In fact, our team right now is amazing. Ethel, who she's got a new car. She's an incredible photographer. So we worked to get her a camera. So she's now taking photos not only for Rebel Nell, but she's doing headshots. She's got her own little side business. And to see her just like live and in person, like blooming in front of us and just really embracing all the classes, all the coursework, everything that's offered at Rebel Nell is truly amazing. But I also think of Patricia. Her story forever will be that aha moment for me. She was one of our initial hires too, and we were doing a pop-up at the Rust Belt. And I'm a big believer that everybody should have the opportunity to sell the product, because I believe if you can sell the product, you learn how to pitch yourself, and that's important when you're looking for jobs in the future. So it's part of our curriculum. And we were selling, it was a freezing cold day, like sub 20. And we were right by the exit door. So the doors were going open and closed the whole time. We had the discount booth because it was so close to the doors, like right next to the coat closet. And she was there with her 2 kids. A woman came up and was like, wow, this necklace is so cool. And she asked how much it was. And it was actually the most high-priced item. It was $200. And she said, oh, okay, well, I can't afford that, but I'll think about it and I'll come back. And I remember Patricia had made that piece and she felt a little like defeated, and I also wanted to educate her in the world of retail. I was like, well, you know, they say they may come back. They probably won't. That's just kind of a thing people say. And sure enough, that woman comes back after an hour and she's like, I can't stop thinking about this necklace. I really need to have it. And then Patricia said a little bit more about the piece. It was made from fallen graffiti, and it empowers women. And the woman's like, oh my gosh, all the things I love. And she ended up buying it. And then the woman was sweet and took a picture with Patricia because she was the artist. And it was really this beautiful, beautiful moment. And this was so early on at Rebel Nell. And I remember the woman left and Patricia just collapsed on the ground crying. And her tears come over, or her kids come over and are comforting her. And she's like, I made that piece. That was me. I made that piece. And she said, Amy, I need to go to the shop right now. I need to make more pieces. I was like, Patricia, it's Sunday. You don't have to do that. You're going to have plenty more time. But that, I think, was also a really powerful moment of, like, we were on to something. But also, I don't think we gave as much credit into the jewelry making part when we first started as we do now. And that was one of those turning points where I kind of looked at it as like a job, like we're going to make jewelry. But because of what we're doing and how beautiful each piece is, it is so transformative for the women because these pieces are allowing them to build confidence in their art, their wearable art. So.
And tell their story, I think, through art, which our art is so powerful. And, you know, all these different, I love storytelling. I love photography, you know, anything like that just gives women an outlet to tell their story. But I love a lot of the pieces that you have where they design because some are like very, I know you have like different sizes and like there are different collections so people can check it out on the website. But some of my favorite pieces have been the ones that the women themselves design the shape,
pieces.
The signature
They're
pieces.
My favorite. That's how we started the company. We still have them. We actually just relaunched them and they're so beautiful now. But those, you're right. You're spot on. Those are the best pieces we have because they are true works of wearable art and they are completely designed, every aspect from the shape to the colors. They're really cool.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see where Rebel Nell goes from here. I think there's so much potential, and I know that you have so many things in the work. What's next for Rebel Nell?
We're trying to get Rebel Nell on the road. So how do we need more sales because the more sales, the more women we can impact. So how can we tell the world about Rebel Nell and the work that we're doing? So we're really working on a growth strategy now to expand into other cities, hopefully in Miami, Atlanta, Seattle. Those are ones that we have our eye on. And hopefully we can have some touch points there. Like for me, it's really important to partner with an organization that's doing similar work to Rebel Nell. Maybe they're the beneficiaries of the collection from those cities so that we have those touch points. So that's what's on our radar. We've got some really cool collections coming up this year. We do these special collections. We did them last year with the Tigers, made from the home dugout. We've done it with the Red Wings, with stuff from the Joe Louis. And we've got a couple that are, I can't drop too many hints, but...
We'll be following, and I'll make sure that I promote it whenever they come out.
Cool. One is a very, very iconic Detroit that will resonate on a very national level.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to see everything that continues to come out, and I will be sure to follow everything that you guys are doing and promote it on One Girl's page. And obviously I'll make sure that all the different collections and the website and everything is in the links for this show so people can easily find all the show notes. I want to talk to you about the congregation because you're like me and you're not busy enough with one thing, so you need we're all crazy because we have so much going on. As if our lives aren't crazy enough, we just decided to add another thing to our world. Talk to me about how the congregation came about.
Yeah, and isn't it funny? I wonder if you feel this way too. Like someone introduced me as a serial entrepreneur, and I was like, I am not a serial entrepreneur. And they're like, but you have like 4 businesses. I was like, oh my God, you're right. I am. You don't think that way. I don't know. I think of serial entrepreneurs as, anyway, that wasn't my intention, but we, my husband and I and our son, we live in the Boston Edison area of Detroit, and for years we don't have that like local community gathering spot. For those who don't know, this is the right at the epicenter of 12th and Claremont, where the 67 rebellion started. And there has not been a business here in over 50 years. And there's this church that was abandoned for many years after we purchased our house. And I thought, wow, that would be just such a cool place, especially like thinking about even the purpose of a church. A church is a gathering space by the nature of what a church is. So how can we reinvent that space and provide something for the community here? So that's when we started the plans. And I think this project really started about 5 years ago. I just had my son, so he just turned 5 years ago. And took us forever. It was a long, painful journey, but we opened it, and to add matters, to add salt to the wound, we finally got it open after 3.5 years of working on the project. We opened it of March 6th of 2020.
Oh my gosh.
Not knowing that the world would shut down literally 10 days later. But I'm incredibly proud of it. I'm proud how we navigated through this storm. I have an amazing, amazing business partner with Betsy Murdoch, and she's so creative, and another phenomenal female entrepreneur that I'm grateful to share this brain space with, so that we can find ways to navigate. And it's so complicated because we weren't even a known business, and so now you're trying to get business, and no one knows you're here. But it worked. We had some great concerts, and it's been such the community hub that we wanted, and very grateful to continue to do that here and make it that event space we need for the community.
Yeah, it's such a cool community space. I encourage everybody who's in Detroit to come by. If you're coming through Detroit, it's a great place to get lunch, to get coffee, to get a cocktail. You guys have so many cool cocktails.
Yeah, it's like your coffee on your way to work, your beer on wine on your way home. That was exactly like what I wanted selfishly.
Yeah, it's like it's a perfect spot. And then you guys were doing like s'mores. There were different days because you have fire pits outside, so people, and even during the pandemic, I feel like a lot of people, I was meeting up with people and sitting outside, because it was like, even in the as things started to open back up in Michigan, there still were places that you could like safely distance from people, meet up for a coffee or a cocktail.
And you talk about silver linings, right? There's so much to be grateful for, and we were talking about this before we started recording. When we built the business plan, and I know there's so many entrepreneurs that you focus on, the outdoor space was not even really considered in our business plan. We weren't counting that as seating. It was just there. It's a green space. We have this wonderful yard that's attached to the congregation. That literally saved us during the pandemic, because we are one of the few places in Detroit that have that much outdoor space, so people could be socially distant. We were able to still have concerts that were outdoors, and you think about ways that you can. Pivot is the most overused word of this time period. Everyone's like trying not to use it, because I feel like as entrepreneurs, we pivot on a daily basis anyway. This has just been more of a survival time. So, yeah, I think that, to the period of being creative, this has really pushed the creative minds, I think.
So with the congregation, I know you shared a little bit, obviously people know, like having a coffee shop or a bar, that you are completely shut down. And so people could come up and get a cocktail and sit outside, which was great. How did things change for Rebel Nell throughout COVID? Because I know you were simultaneously innovating there. Like I love the idea of innovate, because I think the past year everybody pivoted, but people had to be so creative and like dig down into their souls to like find that innovation if you were going to survive.
Yeah. And we had to completely shut down. So it was really, it's hard to believe that's been a year. Like, it's hard to believe because in some ways it feels like yesterday, in other ways it feels like 10 years ago. But we went through, and I think there's also something you said about pivoting. There was that time when everyone was considering, do we just start making PPE?
Right.
We don't even have the machinery for it.
Right.
But do we just start doing it? We made the conscious decision not to do it because it just wasn't what we do. We don't have the machinery for it. I also didn't know how long it would last. I assumed that a lot of people who already had the manufacturing capabilities were going to pivot to that. So this would be a whole new ballgame. We decided not to do it. Whether that was right or wrong, I still stand by that decision because it was out of our wheelhouse. And so what we did was, look for mixed blessings. We had way overproduced for the holidays last year. Who knew? We were so mad at ourselves. And Diane and I in February had these conversations like, this is not how a business should be. We shouldn't have this much inventory after a really strong holiday season. You should be really wiped out by then. I was like, we really overproduced. Little did we know that was going to save our asses March through June when we couldn't have anyone in producing. So we were able to just upload all that inventory. And even if we were offering massive discounts, people were still buying it. And how we really changed is the mentality. And I didn't even say, we just really doubled down on it. So much of our items are given as gifts. Well, you would think during a pandemic, we're non-essential. This isn't going to work. No one's sending gifts. To the contrary, we actually did better because people were sending it as like, hey, girl, I'm thinking of you. I know we can't grab wine right now, but I know you need me. Here is a gift from a women's organization that's super empowering. Wear this and stay strong through this period. That was coming in droves. I was like, this is it. This is actually made me feel good. I was like, oh, our marketing's working because this is who we are. And we are providing that gift. Like that is our healing element that we're offering. That is our how we're contributing. And if it's making people feel better or doing something that provides happiness when, oh man, everyone's mental health kind of went out the window, right? That was a cool thing to see and honored to be a part of that.
I love that story too, because we always think that we have to do really big things. And I think a lot of people, when the pandemic hit, they were like, okay, first of all, how do I survive? How does my family survive through this? People were losing their jobs, going through a lot of difficult things. Obviously, healthcare workers were going above and beyond, all kinds of essential workers. I just keep thinking about grocery store workers, what they went through throughout all of this. But I loved seeing these little things that people would do where they'd buy gifts for essential workers. And they were like, hey, I know I can't be out there, like I'm working from home and my office has told me that I have to work from home for however long, but I can do these little things. And so I think it's an important reminder for everybody that sometimes it's like, okay, what can I just do to feed someone's soul a little bit? Write them a little card, get them a little gift, and then you're supporting Rebel Nell through it too.
Yeah. And that saved us. Like if anyone's listening who did that during, the major scary time, like March through really like June, thank you, because that got us through. Hopefully that provided some incredible gift to whoever you were sending and they valued it. But that enabled us to keep our employees, like we paid for all their lost wages. We did a hell of a job. I'm proud of what we did during that time because it was, it's I'm not singling us out. It's just, it was so unknown. This wasn't anything that anyone prepared you for. It just happened. And how you navigate every single day was critical. And our team, I think, did a really good job. Like the first thing we thought about was, okay, how do we make sure our team has access? We're going to get them laptops, first and foremost. So we dropped them all off at their homes, made sure that they were connected. So any resources that we knew about, we were sending them to them so that they had the access. They could still stay connected with our caseworker and our life coach that were still on staff. So I think that was really important, and making sure they were just paid, and so that they didn't have to panic. And in combination with, we had a ton of sales, but our community really rallied and helped us cover that as well. So it's something to be said. There's a really strong sense of community that came out, though it's always been here. This is a very strong community, but the pandemic even made it more so. And those who didn't lose their job, I feel, really stepped in to help those that maybe did. Like, there seemed to be a pretty good balance.
Amy, if you could get to the heart of everything, and I know you're involved in a lot of different things, and this is a very personal question, but I'm always curious what drives people. If you could get to the root of everything that you do and why you do it, what do you think it is that drives you to do Rebel Nell and congregation and everything else that you're involved in?
I truly love seeing people happy and succeed. It's almost a weird obsession. Like, I love it. I literally, enjoy watching other people's success and like, how can I help them get there? How can I help connect those dots? That I live for doing that. I just do. And that is what makes me tick. And you hope that it's helping people in the right direction. But I mean, it's just like coming here and now at the congregation and just seeing people enjoy the space. That eliminates any worry, fear that I have. I love watching it. Same with like at Rebel Nell, when we have somebody graduate, and what a backwards business model do we have? Like we get really good employees and then we're like, okay, out the door you go. But that's what keeps me going. Like it's not about the profit. Trust me. I would have made very different businesses. That's what keeps me going. It really is.
You're just so amazing, and I love everything that you do with Rebel Nell. I'm going to make sure that everybody can easily find Rebel Nell and the congregation, and I hope that people who are listening will get involved and support your work. For people that are listening, what can they do? And I know it's totally different things for Rebel Nell and for congregation. What can people do to support the work that you're doing?
Yeah, the best thing is obviously tell people about us. We've been very successful with our word of mouth. So at rebelnell.com or thecongregationdetroit.com. Share the love, come visit, buy a piece of jewelry, send one to your friend.
And for people that are business owners, I always love episodes like this to talk about what people can do in their own businesses, because sometimes we all think like, oh, well, I don't have a social enterprise, but you can also give other people opportunities that might not have an opportunity elsewhere. And so what would you say to business owners that might take a chance on somebody or might know somebody who's struggling right now, especially thinking about the pandemic and so many people have lost jobs and are just trying to get their feet back on a path?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. Well, ironically, the reason we started Teach, Empower, Achieve, is ultimately that we would help businesses who want to give others a chance, who have really lived, serving a challenged population. So hopefully, because as a business owner, your focus should be on making sure the business is okay, growing the business. That's where your energy should be. And how can you then provide employment opportunities? That's where, if you're open to it, then T would come in and provide all the supportive services to you. So you don't necessarily have to worry about it. We could provide the structure of the programming. So I encourage everybody to look at Teach, Empower, Achieve. You can find a link on our website, rebelnell.com, if you are exploring that, because we have built out that model and can provide those resources. And we've just really we had big growth plans last year, and Rebel Nell's been our beta test, but this year we're focusing on getting more companies to let us help you accomplish that dream.
That's awesome. And I'll be sure to post the link so people can easily find it, because I just think that more and more business owners should be looking into that. And especially if there's a program like that that's already built to support that, I think that's incredible.
Yep.
Okay, before I let you go, I always end this podcast with one question. So I'd like to ask you, of course, we have all different people that listen to this podcast, but because it's focused on women and girls, I want to ask you, if you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
I've been saying this a lot to myself lately. This has been my mantra, and I wish I'd started saying it to myself earlier. Is that I am who I am, and I don't need to apologize for that. I often feel, and what I mean by that is like we often try and fit into different molds in certain situations, and it's okay to be you and everything that you believe in and you stand for. And so I think that is my mantra. That is my advice, is that you're you, you're beautiful, you're confident, you're amazing, and you don't need to apologize for any of it.
Such great advice for all the women that are out there. Amy, thank you so much for all the great work you do, and thank you for being a part of One Girl Evolution. I'm so grateful for you.
Well, thank you for doing what you do. This is amazing. We appreciate you giving us a voice.
Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at One Girl Revo. That's the number one girl, REVO. And you can find more information on One Girl Revolution at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number one girlrevolution.com.